we have anybody get back online
Yeah, everybody's still on.
Oh, very good.
so, Yeah, all right, go ahead.
For those online, we just had a power outage bump. Our emergency generator actually just kicked on. So Lindsay had to relog us back in. We're going to continue discussion about G Road and Sawmill Mesa Road. Mark, we're going to turn it over to you.
There's just a couple of things I think I can approve on it, the intersection there. The dip, just west of the intersection, it's a big dip, and when you come up onto it, you're in a pretty good hole. If you're in a little car, you can't see till you're way up there if somebody's pulling out. It's a pretty good hole. I think I can fill that. Fill it up pretty good, maybe not all the way, but where you could at least see the intersection when you're going eastbound. That's the main thing, because the guys on top of the hill, they can see pretty good, but when you're down in that dip going eastbound, pretty blind, down into there. I think that'd be an improvement. And I guess I would like to just see it as a T intersection. It's a T intersection. And keep it legal that way. The Y intersections are illegal now. Any kind of Y intersection stuff like it used to be is not proper, not legal. So, like the state, they're trying to get rid of their Y intersections out in Reed, areas like that. They still have them Y intersection. You can make it a 3-way stop if you want. I'll be slow the speeds down through the traffic to the intersection. But right now, like you say, they're rolling through the stop sign.
Coming from Grand Junction, you're rolling.
We got a stop ahead sign flashing, then we got a stop sign flashing. And I'm still moving over, just rolling through, going into Delta.
And I was just on that road Monday, and that stop sign is actually turned to where you can't even hardly see it till you're right up on it, because something happened to it and it got turned, wind blown or messed with or something. So
We actually talked about maybe cutting some of the pavement out of that intersection and moving that stop sign
well,
further out.
and I'm really glad Mike had this put on the agenda today, because I've been driving that road quite a little bit, just trying to think of what we need to do, because it is a problem. And in my opinion, that's one of our biggest challenges is coming up off a G up onto, like you're coming from Junction into Delta. You hit that intersection, our center line's clear down here on the bottom side of the hill rather than at the crest of that hill. We can't.
And they did that. See, yeah.
Right, but they, and I appreciate the T. I think it needs to be a T intersection, but I think you're gonna have to, we may have to acquire some property, and we may have to curve that thing back and bring it into a full T. Or, either way, you're probably gonna have to acquire some property there to make it happen. But I mean, this
Also that it's kind of down in a hole there.
right,
And, if you could bring that up to what an intersection should look like.
right,
And then fill, going to the west,
right,
fill that in, I think that would
yeah.
improve it a bunch. They're still gonna run the stop signs and what to do with that.
You're not gonna make people good drivers. All we can do is try to make it a safer intersection, so.
And probably chunk out the pavement on the east side, how it merges in there. You can chunk that out and just make it regular T with radiuses. And then you want to put a stop sign in there, make them stop and turn.
Do we need to hold a meeting to put stop signs in or just put them in?
But that would slow that traffic,
Really,
or at least to maybe a roll or whatever they're doing. To get on to G50 as opposed to, you know, that's the way it is now.
And the cement dividers, I guess you call them, you know, I thought about that too, but if somebody comes flying down that's headed to Grand Junction, hits one of them cement dividers and launches into that house right there, is kind of a concern too. If maybe we put up those, you know, plastic fence post types things that,
delineators.
yeah, delineators from one side to the other, but
They make ones that
spring back.
flop down and kick back.
So-
Nobody will run over.
So, you know, I know we've tried getting out on this on the cheap here. The last couple of times we were supposed to get somebody to come review it. It was a free program or a grant or something, and that never really happened. They never came, I don't even know if they ever came out and physically looked at it. They just looked at a map, kind of like pictometry. I've got it up right now. And I'm kind of wondering if we don't just need to budget some money in this next cycle and have it engineered and have it done right.
That's where I was headed.
You know, there's just too much traffic, too much liability. I think this warrants us spending a little money, having it engineered and doing it right, and making sure that we have something that's gonna meet the full standards.
And also give us some volumes, so Mark knows how to budget both time and material.
Right. Right.
If we're gonna fill in that dip.
Yeah, I'd like to fix it, be done. I don't like. to-
Exactly.
Well, that didn't work, you know.
Because the traffic's not gonna stop. Google's not gonna take this off their map. So we're gonna have to, we just need to fix it. That's all there is to it. So.
Can we go ahead and fill in on the west side prior to the engineer? Or do we need to wait for the engineer on that too?
I don't know why we couldn't fill in on the Sawmill Mesa roadside, but
Okay,
I mean, it's gonna improve line of sight for the intersection no matter how it's changed, so.
I think it'd be pretty good. I don't know how high I can get it. from my
Right.
width,
right,
Right.
But it's pretty wide,
yeah.
pretty wide down there. I mean, there's an access, I think a field access down there that we might have to move out to the property owner.
So as far as the time frame is, so that Eric is aware of our time frame, do we wait till 24 to budget the money for it, or do we go ahead and contact an engineer now?
You will complete every project in all of the districts that you budgeted for in 2023, so there would be the budget to start the engineer process
In 24?
in 2023.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how much this costs. We might need to put out an RFP for it, because it might be,
Right,
it's probably gonna exceed the
So we
$50,000.
could start on, we could get the ball rolling.
right.
Okay,
We can do a few initial things at the intersection if you'd like, though. Like say we can change the trajectory of it a little bit and bring that sign where it's a little easier to see, stop sign.
So let me recap here what I'm hearing. In the short term, we got two things going on here, long-term, short-term. Short-term is, Mark, you're gonna look into filling that grade dip in before you pave, before you fire up the hot plant. Because you don't want to sit that gravel for,
I was willing
you don't want to leave that,
to do all that right now. And leave something gravel for a year. I really don't think that's a good idea.
I agree.
I think we can go in and definitely paint stripe, brighten up the paint on it, fix the sign, possibly order some those flexible
Carcinite.
illuminators that actually makes them turn that way, or they run over the delineator.
mhm.
And
So we'll hold off on filling in till we get
I
closer.
would,
Okay,
cause I think it'd be just
yeah,
forever, once, once that traffic beats on it and you're out, you'll be fixing it for a year, trying to.
I personally, I don't know that we want to do any of the delineator signs until we've had this thing engineered. I don't know, given the rate of speed, the number of vehicles we have there, I don't know that those signs would meet code
I
on
think
that.
they just stick down to the ground. It'd be just a temporary, just to funnel them over there for now, but I can't think of anything else.
What about grooving the pavement? We've done that elsewhere to limited success. So you got kind of a rumble strip effect.
Like putting bumps and stuff out there, but
Winter's coming. Yeah.
you're basically chewing your oil up. You know.
Especially on a high traffic road like that. So short term, we got two things, the short term, long term. Short term would be moving the stop sign, fixing that. Don, I'd like to have them look into the delineator posts, at least put a few out there.
I think ultimately your biggest problem, even if you put those delinear posts, you're forcing people to turn downhill coming into that intersection. Okay, you come up to that intersection, you're forcing people to turn downhill. And you don't feel safe because your oncoming traffic's coming from the left at a higher point. You're forcing those people to turn downhill, you're taking away their line of sight, and then they gotta turn back uphill to get back up on get back up on G Road. So I don't,
you'd rather
mean,
wait for see what the engineer says.
I'd rather wait for the engineer personally, because like I said, it's not, with the crest of that hill on that intersection, it's just not a good location. And I'm thinking the delineating indicators are gonna cause more problems than they solve. Okay. I think,
You convinced?
Okay,
So
I don't
fix the
think
stop
we
sign.
Definitely don't want to put cement barriers up there.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
No, I think that would.
Do some brighten up the paint. Fix the stop sign. Let's get an RFP out for engineering. See what kind of property we would need to buy in volumes for filling that dip in and redesigning that.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Does that capture everything we were talking about, gentlemen?
I think so. And so you'll see some paint out there, but as far as dirt moving, there probably won't be any till see what the engineer says.
So just keep holding our breath in the meantime.
Get the sheriff's out there as much as you can.
Yeah,
Don't stop anywhere else.
No, but I get that, but the sheriff's deputy can't sit there for the volume that goes through there, because,
That's right.
it's gonna be a waste of their time, and I'm not gonna ask an officer to do that.
yeah.
But spot enforcement doesn't hurt.
Agreed,
Mhm.
agreed.
And I did talk to Mark Taylor about
Thank you for doing that.
doing a little more fast.
Okay,
If I come out.
So let's head down that direction.
okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate your concerns.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You
Yep.
too.
Good enough. Thank you.
Robbie, back to you.
Okay, next is your consideration and signature regarding the Bureau of Land Management proposed rulemaking related to conservation and landscape health. This would be a comment letter. Comment letters are due to the BLM today. It is in the packet. If you have any suggestions or edits, be glad to do that. We still need that signature today. So if there is any changes, let me know so that we can get that submitted.
Commissioners, any other edits?
That letter looked great. I thought it pretty much addressed, we don't have a 15-page document here to address all of our concerns, but this definitely addresses the largest ones, so.
Yes, and thank you for putting that together, Robbie. I knew it was a lot of I'll work for there to get the topics mentioned and in the proper language so that it can be addressed.
I did hear from Western Slope Conservation Center. They're submitting a letter of support for the rulemaking. They asked for clarifying language regarding the other layers of restrictions. I was able to clarify the intent there. So that's the only other input I've received.
Okay.
Do we need to do an action?
Yeah.
item on this one?
I will move that the board approve the letter to the Bureau of Land Management regarding proposed rule related to conservation and landscape health.
I second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Have you got a clean copy, Robbie?
Oh, I can get one. Yeah. I think I have one. Okay, and then Jolene is here for.
Welcome, please join us.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the time.
You as well.
How are you this morning, commissioners?
Good.
Doing well.
Good.
And then says
Morning,
draft.
Robbie.
You brought your calculator, that's.
What about the calculator? A copy for Terry as well. And
Yeah,
only
Terry,
four,
we didn't-
so, All right.
We didn't agree to this much paperwork. I'm just telling you right now.
It hurt me to print it all.
There goes your budget.
Right. So, again, good morning, commissioners, and thank you for putting me into the schedule today. I'm doing the July reporting requirement for Colorado Revised Statute 398105 to provide you with the total actual and assessed value of the county, and also to report to you on the number of protests received through our protest period, which started May 1st and ended June 8th, as well as personal property declarations that we have not received to date. Those are due April 17th this year, so we have a short list of accounts that did not file declarations this year. In your packet, the first attachment is the class abstract for 2023. It's a 7-page document. And I'll just have you flip to the last page. On this page, it reports the total actual and assessed value of Delta County. That very last row, it says total all codes. Well, that includes exempt property. So I have a cover letter that gives you the actual figures, but if you want to make a note, the total taxable actual value of Delta County is $5,007,412,832. And total taxable assessed valuation, $498,158,673. Now, these figures do not reflect the reductions to the 2023 assessment rates or the one-time value reduction for residential and commercial properties. So those numbers, the revised numbers that do take into account the reduced assessment rates and the value exemptions will be available to everyone by August 25th. So these are the numbers prior to those reductions.
Jolene, I can't find which page you're on.
Page 7.
Page 7 of 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And the document.
Where was that 5 billion then?
So it's the fourth column over. And your number shows 5,895,000,000.
That's the one I was, yeah.
Yep, and of that, what's taxable is 5,007,412,832.
Okay. Thank you.
So also, as you all know, under Colorado law, assessors offices throughout the state conduct reappraisals once every 2 years. Our new valuations reflected a level of value as of June 30th of 2022. Prior values were based on level of value June 30th of 2020. In Delta County, residential improved properties experienced a median increase in actual value of 45%, while commercial and industrial real estate saw a median increase of 15%. These increases were found to be similar with increases seen in several western Colorado counties. And on your cover letter or your top sheet here, we have a listing of the median increases of several surrounding counties. So, for example, Mesa County had a median increase in residential property value of 40%, 42% for commercial. Yeah, that was a lot different than us. Montrose, 47% residential, 32% commercial. But overall average 46% for Western Slope counties that reported, and median of 45% for residential, and 27 and 25 median percent increase for commercial and industrial.
Jolene, the differential between residential and commercial for Delta County seems to be much greater than most of the other counties besides Rio Blanco. What's driving that, do you think?
Do you mean in percent of increase?
No, say Delta County at 45% median for residential and 15% for commercial. The other counties have a less, smaller disparity between those two numbers.
I believe that, when you talk about Gunnison, Mesa, Montrose, Uray, we're dealing with totally different economies in the business sector. Our real estate values didn't shoot up like other county values for the commercial sector. We did see some pretty strong growth, but we're limited in sales volume. And obviously, we're still working on trying to make Delta County an attractive place to have a business. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
Okay.
On the second page of the cover letter, there's a listing of the assessment rates, the comparison from 2022 to 2023. You can see that the changes in assessment rates are not substantial, which they probably wouldn't be because it means so much to taxing entities and the impacts to your actual revenue seeking entities. So they're not going to drop them significantly all at once. This is going to come down over time, I suspect. So this is the third time they have been lowered since 2020. And in addition to the assessment rates being lowered, we also talked about it briefly, the exemption. So $15,000 per residential property and $30,000 per improved commercial property for tax year 2023. So what that means is that whatever your notice of value showed for your property value, $15,000 will come off of that, off the top, and will be exempted from taxation. For a residential homeowner, that means about $67 off your tax bill. And for a commercial property owner, it means about, I think it's $300. I'm sorry, $540 off their tax bill, so that's good. For the 2023 protest season, we received 636 real property protests. The valuations were adjusted on 435 accounts, 180 accounts were denied, and for 21 accounts, the owner was satisfied after visiting with the assessor's office about our values. For comparison purposes, I've provided a protest count for the last 3 reappraisal cycles. And you'll see that our number of protests essentially doubled in this reappraisal as a result of the spike in real estate values. Also on notices of value for the first time, it was required that a property tax estimate be included on that notice. And unfortunately, it was not really all that accurate because it doesn't reflect the value reductions, the assessment rates and all that as well. So what people saw on their notices of value is probably more than what they'll actually see.
Nor the potential for reduction in actual.
Right.
from
Right.
The entities.
Yes,
which
exactly.
Still has not been determined,
That's correct.
so that's what I've tried to explain to everybody that's called.
Yes,
So-
that's correct. Yeah, mill levies don't,
Right.
obviously aren't set until the fall of the year, so. As far as the rest of the paperwork in your packet. we have-
So before you get too much farther, I mean, that basically tells us we got 159 accounts that still have to be reconciled somehow.
No, so what it means when I say denied, are you looking at the 180?
Yeah, the 180 counts denied and 21 that were satisfied.
So denied means that whatever their request was, say it was, I want a lower value, that was denied after reviewing the account. So they are handled and processed. It's just that their evaluations were not adjusted to what they
Okay,
proposed.
okay,
And 21 were essentially satisfied or voided out because property owners were
Okay.
satisfied with explanation.
okay. I was just trying to prepare myself for a long day of Board of Equalization here, so.
Yeah, to be seen. We've got through July 17th for people to file with the county board.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I feel better now.
Sure, no problem. We sent out notices of determination on June 30th, so I believe most people have received them by now and will be directing any appeals to the clerk's office for filing from this point forward.
Go team.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, this sheet here gives the listing of personal property accounts that we did not receive a declaration for this year.
What's the next step on these?
On these, if they do not file a declaration, we'll review them. There's a potential for us to contact the owner to do an audit on it to make sure that the information is correct. And then also there's a late filing penalty fee that's attached to the property tax bill next January. And then the bulk of your packet here is a listing of all of the 636 protests that we received. And the last page gives the same numbers that I mentioned in the letter about the number that were adjusted, denied, and satisfied. And personal property protest for personal property accounts ended on June 30th. We received 3 protests. One of them is not on this form, but we've got 3. And notices of determination on personal property will go out July 10th. One other thing just to mention is Proposition HH, which I'm sure everyone has heard at least something about, which proposes further value reductions for 2023, moving the value reduction for residential from 15,000 to 50,000. And so these kinds of changes late in the year will pose a challenge to taxing entities to try to identify what their final numbers are going to be for calculating budgets. But we'll be on that as much as we can be and see what happens. I think there's a lot of moving parts for property assessment this year.
Might be our special guest at the next coffee with the commissioner. So,
A lot of information coming in our office for sure. Are there any questions that I could address or answer for any of the board members?
Jolene, I will say your professionalism and dedication here is outstanding.
Thank you
I
very
very
much.
appreciate
Oh,
what you
yeah.
do.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys as well.
So,
I can assume my fellow commissioners have fielded an equal number of calls that I have on this. And I know for a fact when I send them to the assessor's office, they're all happy with the service they get out of there, and they come away with a better understanding of why things are the way they are.
That's great to hear. It's great to hear.
You
they
know,
don't always like the.
they don't always like the answer.
Professionalism.
Absolutely. I have to say, our staff has just gone above and beyond. They've done such a good job. So.
And I've had a couple of them that have called me and I've offered to buy their property for what it was assessed at, and they refused to sell it for that low amount, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you all. And look forward
Jolene,
to-
what do you need from us at this point?
You know, with the bills that are proposed and in the works right now, we're looking at additional duties coming on to the assessor's office. I'm gonna have to review that for personnel, but honestly, I think it's a countywide issue that we're dealing with, which is hiring and retention. So anytime there's an opportunity to make a meaningful change there, I don't have all the answers for sure, but it seems like since COVID, we've had a real tough time getting people.
Yeah.
So.
And we put out some new ads. Some of your stuff, so those will be rolling out this week.
Okay, that's great. That's great. We did fill one of our positions today, so
Good.
we've got 2 more. open.
Yes, maybe we can chat a little bit about that and how to get some information.
Sure, that sounds great.
Me too.
I-
filled my position.
Yeah.
In fact, I haven't gotten the 2 applications.
Mhm.
There's none.
We can always powwow. How do you guys think that is, where you think we could draw and, you know, what the ads can say and whatever you guys think.
Sounds great.
Reach out.
Sounds great.
Jolene, I would ask after the November election, we sit down like this again and discuss the implications of passing or non-passing of HH.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're gonna know a lot more by then, and I guess there's an active lawsuit against it.
Yeah.
now, So.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah,
there's just a
that's
lot
the
of-
one that they
lot-
asked us
lot
to
of
join
moving
in.
parts right now.
Oh, that's right.
So, but yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jolene.
guys,
Thanks.
too.
Good job carrying the sign during the parade.
Tell,
Thank you.
tell your staff, thank you for all their efforts.
I will, absolutely. They'll be thrilled to hear it.
Thank you, you too.
Robbie next.
Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Good morning. So, our calendar for this month so far, this Thursday, July 6th at 6 p.m. we have music at the fairgrounds featuring House Eddie and Lesnar. Should be a good time. Again, it's a free event. And we are still looking for some food vendors, so please reach out if you know of anyone. We have a coffee with the commissioner on July 13th at 7:30 a.m. That would be District 3, I believe is the turn. I had on the calendar, it was District 1, but we just had mics, so it has to be flipped out to District. I think it's your turn.
The 13th, I'm gone. Well, that's Club 20 Summer Conference.
Oh, that's right.
Unless Don wanted to double up here, have some fun.
Why don't we do District 2 and then we'll swing back and do District 3?
Okay.
We won't have it at the coffee barn.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Water and Land Committee, July 13th at 11 a.m.
That's me.
The next Delta County Board of County Commissioners meeting is July 18th, 8:30 a.m. The 18th, we have a work session at 1 p.m. The Land Use Code with Commissioners in the Planning Department. There's a Board of Health meeting on July 18th, 3:30 p.m. On July 26th at 8 a.m., you have an emergency and disaster considerations for executive course in person. That'll be held here. And then we have, skipping to the 28th of July at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., the Delta County Community Night at the fairgrounds. Again, a free event. There will be music, the commissioners, and free food. Anything I'm missing, John?
You know, on the 13th, that Club 20 Summer Conference, that's the one in Pagosa Springs. I wasn't gonna go to that, were you?
No, I've got other meetings that day, so,
Why don't you let me go ahead and do Commissioner Coffee that day?
okay.
We'll do it.
Okay.
We'll get together where and when.
Okay. Anything else I'm missing?
On the 18th, when we have the land use with the planning commission, do we need a bigger room?
That's not till, the joint meeting's not till August 9.
Yeah. Your work session was just for you all.
It's a final review.
It's not with the planning
No.
commission that day. Okay.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
Yeah.
That was my mistake. I'll relist that on the website. Thank you for clarifying. missed that last work session. All right, and then I have a few things for you guys to review that Wendell and I've been working on. I have them on the printer and I'll get to you and look at them.
And I did get an email from CDOT. I'll forward that to you here in a minute
Okay.
on the right names and contacts.
Okay.
Anything else, gentlemen, for calendars and for Lindsay? Hearing nothing, I'll go ahead and do the jail report. Jail report, Delta County Detention Facility Population Count Report for Monday, June 19th, 2023. Male inmates 24, female inmates County Jail 11, male inmates DOC 4, female inmates DOC 0 for a total of 39. For Tuesday, June 27th, 2023, detention facility population count is male inmates County Jail 24, female inmates County Jail 9, male inmates DOC 4, and female inmates DOC 0. Average daily inmate population for the week of June 19th through June 26th was 48.58. Anything else come for the board? Our next event is planning at 10 o'clock, about 13 minutes. So we'll recess until then. Gentlemen. Ready? Welcome, everybody. We're back on record.
Lindsay's needs to shut something down there.
Getting some feedback.
Oh, mute your computer.
Ready? All good?
Yeah.
Okay, welcome everybody, buddy. We're back on record. This is June 5th, 2023, the regular meeting for Delta County Board of Commissioners. It is 10 o'clock, ready for planning. I'm going to turn it over to Brittany to introduce this.
All right, so today we have PLN 23-036. Simone, this application is to rezone a 30.91 acre parcel from A20 to A5. It's located north off of 2525 Road and south of Pine Ridge Road in Cedar Ridge. The background, the subject parcel is under 31 acres and has been zoned A20 under the land use code. The parcel abuts the Pine Ridge North subdivision. The subdivision was completed in 3 phases with lots ranging from 2 to 2.5 acres. Pine Ridge Road is a public road that is privately maintained by the subdivision. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this application on May 24th. Numerous neighbors were in attendance at this meeting. Concerns brought forward, including potential numbers of lots under the A5 zoning, access, and water. On the left is the sketch plan that was from the Pine Ridge North subdivision. As you can see, Pine Ridge Road was extended to the south to the subject parcel. On the right is the final plat of phase 3 of Pine Ridge North subdivision, which was completed in 2021. Current conditions, as you can see here, the subject property abuts a large area of A5 zoning to the north, with the majority of the lots being smaller than the designated zoning. The property does not currently consist of any irrigated ag lands. It does have the potential for access to 2525 Road as well as Pine Ridge Road. However, because Pine Ridge Road is private and managed by the Pine Ridge North subdivision, the property owner would need to be added to the maintenance agreement if access were to come from Pine Ridge Road. This would be addressed during the subdivision process. Rezoning standards. The LUC listing 3 findings for rezoning. Being the rezone will not reduce the protection of natural resources or expose people or properties to hazard. The proposed zoning is consistent with the master plan and adequately public facilities are available. Along with findings, the LUC requires 1 of 3 determinations to be made. Staff has determined that alternative number 2 fits the proposal best based on the sketch plan and background of the Pine Ridge North subdivision. Staff feels the parcel would allow for reasonable development and is compatible with the existing surroundings. Proposed rezone. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property from A20 to A5. If the rezone were to be approved, this would give the property owner the potential for 6 5-acre lots. However, the intent of the applicant is to subdivide the property into 2 15-acre lots, which would be done administratively as a minor plat. Under the land use code, a second access is required from subdivision that have 8 or more lots. With this proposal, it would be possible to have Pine Ridge Road extended to 2525 Road, allowing for a second access to the Pine Ridge North subdivision, as well as any proposed future lots for the subject property. Access will be addressed during the subdivision process. When the applicant applies for the subdivision of the property, there will be required to supply proof of adequate water for all lots. Public comments. Staff received multiple public comments or multiple comments from the public. Concerns were again the potential for 6 lots, water supply, and impact to wildlife. There were comments in regards to having the applicant apply for variances instead of a rezone. The applicant has stated that at this time, the time that they inquired about applying for variance, the Board of Adjustments did not consist of a full board to hear the variance application. Therefore, the applicant's only option was to apply for a rezone. From staff perspective, a rezone is a better approach for lots under the current land use code rather than variances, which are, rather than the variances. Access has been discussed at length. The concern for the access to 2525 Road as the subject property would need an access easement from neighboring properties to access 2525 Road. The neighbor would like to minimize impact to their property as much as possible. They have stated in their comments that they would be okay with allowing 1 of the proposed 15-acre lot access through their property, but they do not want to have ingress egress for the entire Pine Ridge North subdivision, as well as future proposed lots. Again, access will be reviewed during the subdivision process. Recommendations. With that, the Planning Commission recommends that your board finds the proposed rezone meets the requirements set forth in the LUC and approve PLN 23-036 rezoning 30.91 acres located south of Pine Ridge North subdivision and A20 from A20 to A5. That concludes my presentation.
Very good. I know you're on the spot.
Yeah.
And just as a reminder to all, that rezone is a legislative action, meaning that the county commissioner needs to either approve or deny the rezone. There is no discretionary action and conditions cannot be applied.
Questions for planning on this or the applicant? Don, this is your district. You're probably
Well, I'm
most
just,
familiar.
no, I'm just, I'm thinking because it is a rezone, we should handle this more like a public hearing and open it up for public comment and then come back to, planning and the applicant after that
We can do that.
would be my suggestion.
Because this is a rezone, as Commissioner Supas indicated, we're going to open this up for public comment. When I call your name, if you'd like to speak, come forward. Make sure that mic is on, the red light, and introduce yourself and your address, and provide us substantive comments. So first, we'll start with Lance Enholm. Welcome.
Good morning.
Is that mic on?
It is.
Thank you.
My name's Lance Enholm. I live at 15371 2525 Road. So my property is the one that's to the south of this proposed subdivision. And when I bought the property, there is an easement through my property to that, the property in question. So that's why I'm here, because I wanted to talk about two particular topics.
Now, understand, we're talking about the rezone.
Correct. Yes, I want to speak to the rezone.
Okay.
And I've had several conversations with the applicant and I appreciate his willingness to look at just subdividing the property into two. My personal preference, obviously, would be just one property owner, but I don't want to tell somebody what to do with their property. So two would be acceptable to me. I am concerned and opposed to rezoning it to Ag 5 so that there's 6 properties potentially there. My conversations with the applicant is that he would put a deed restriction on it so that those properties couldn't be subdivided any further. And that is a preference I have. I do believe, I think it is in his defense, he tried to get a variance, but the board wasn't available to hear that. So now we're going through the rezoning process. I think the variance is a better solution because it would limit it to 2 15-acre properties versus the potential for 6. And then with access, I just want to make sure, because I'm not comfortable with the planning meeting I attended, that there's a full understanding that 2525 road ends, the pavement ends at my property line. And then it goes down to dirt. The maps tend to show 2525 road going all the way to my residence, but that's not the case. And I'm happy to show that on a screen if somebody wanted to pull it up, but the road ends at the pavement. So for the access for this property, would have to come through my property to access it. I have no issue with that, particularly if it's divided the way the applicant wants to do it, because that would mean only one residence. If we end up having to go the route of a secondary access to the Pine Ridge subdivision and making that a complete loop, that then means that that access would come through my property. I would assume that would have to be widened. There's a culvert there. My gates actually at that point that would have to be moved. And I'm opposed to having an entire loop through there and paving that route through my property. Does that make, does that make sense? When I'm talking about 2525 road, do I need to?
We've got maps in front of us here also.
Okay, so so you understand it ends right. I just want to make sure it's clear. So it ends right here.
Right.
Okay. All right. I don't have any further comments, any questions, but I appreciate your time and
It's a public comment period, so we won't address questions right now, but if we need to call you back up, we can.
okay, can I just, I'm sorry, one other thing. I just want to make sure I submitted a written document for this. Did you all receive that?
I'm sure it's in our packet.
Okay, I just want to make sure you got that as well.
Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Henry.
thank you very much.
Greg Fizel.
Good morning.
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 My name is Greg Fazell. I live at 15459 2525 Road. I understand that this meeting is to address the rezoning only. My concern has to do with the access to the property that is in question. So I can't speak to that very much in lieu of the fact that the purpose of the meeting is not for that. However, I was around way back when the subdivision first started to be developed. And the neighbors on the 2525 road stretch put together a letter and addressed it to the county commissioners at that time, as well as to the planning commission, stating that we would like to see the access to this particular subdivision up on Cedar Mesa Road versus down through 2525 Road and coming in on the south. There are many reasons within this letter for our request. And after the county listened to, read, and understood what our concerns were, they came up with the ruling to put the entrance to that subdivision where it is currently now on Pine Ridge Road, up above the curve on 2525. To me, it's kind of reinventing the wheel from that decision back in September of 2007 to now potentially allow traffic to come in from the south side. So I do still understand that this meeting is not for that purpose. I just would like that to be considered when you make your decision. So back to the original intent of this meeting, I would, at this point in time, since we can't address the access issue, I would be opposed to allowing the subdivision be changed from 2 15-acre lots to the 6 5-acre lots, because if the access wasn't addressed and kept the way it is currently, it would totally negatively impact the people on 2525 Road. So I do hope that this letter is in your packet for you all to read and see what our concerns were back in September of 2007. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you for your time.
Fred Gutzmacher.
Morning, my name is Fred Grutzmacher, Grutzmacher, and I live at 24805 Summit Court in Cedar Edge, which is off of Pine Ridge Road in the Pine Ridge subdivision. I'm currently the Secretary Treasurer of the Subdivision Association. And our concern is that I mean, we've received a letter from Mr. Shimon that he only intends to split the property in half, a northern half and a southern half, and all that, and that's fine. It's future down the road, and if I was to buy that northern 15-acre parcel, I would probably think to myself, if it's zoned A5, that why don't I split it in 3, sell the other 2 off and pay for my property and possibly even building my house there. So I don't see anything that's going to restrict anybody from doing that in the future. Letters of intent and this sort of thing I think are admirable, but I don't know how far you can throw that down the road. The issue that if this were to get developed into 6 properties down there, is the access through Pine Ridge North subdivision. Back when it was developed, there must have been an agreement at that time when it got to a certain point that the road had to be paved. And when that road got paved, it was only paved 15 feet wide. That's not even wide enough for 2 trucks to pass. We had trucks get stuck this last winter trying to pass each other going off the road because the shoulder is pretty steep and got stuck. Actually had to call a tow truck out to yank them out. And of course, all that damage to the side of the road, nobody came back and fixed. It was up to us to fix that. So maintaining that section of Pine Ridge Road that's only 15 feet wide is going to get a little pricey in the future as far as we're concerned, especially if that gets developed into 6 lots. I understand that there's a concern for fire safety and so on, that 2 accesses are better than 1, and I can see that. But
Mr. Ritzmacher, we really need to address the issue at hand, which is the rezoning.
okay, well, I think that the variance would have been the better option. They weren't allowed to do that, so now we're down to this rezoning. I don't know that any restrictions can be put on this, on future buyers of this property. So at this point in time, I think the subdivision association would be against this rezoning because we don't have any guarantees of road maintenance in the future or anything like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn and Brad Gross.
Hi, my name is Brad Gross and I live at 24807 Quail Court, just off of the Pine Ridge Road, the Pine Ridge subdivision. I'll just start off by saying in general, I don't take any issue personally with 2 lots being created out of the 1. As it relates to the rezoning, I guess I have a question that maybe at some point can be answered. I've heard Pine Ridge Road referred to as public and private. From me, it appears to be private because there are no public funds involved in any way in the maintenance or upkeep of that road. So based on that, I think that the rezone approval from the Planning Commission was incorrectly approved because there are not adequate public facilities if Pine Ridge Road is in fact a private road to support the rezoning of that subdivision. That's only an opinion, but I want to go on record having stated that. Again, in general, I've read Rob's letter and I have no pushback on the 2 lots being created as long as there can be something governing what happens in the future. As far as through access goes, in the rezone, given that there could be 6 lots and there could be a shortcut created from the lower lot coming through Pine Ridge Road, which is our road and our financial burden, would become the access or the shortcut for anybody traveling from the south north to go into Cedar Ridge. So I would be opposed for any thoroughfare happening there other than emergency access. And I have no problem with that. Makes perfect sense. And I had another note here, deed restrictions. I don't know if there's a way to control the further development, as Fred had said, based on the A20 to A5. So those are my comments. But again, I'm not lacking support for Rob in the 2 lots if it can be controlled as such. So,
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Rob Simone.
Rob Simone, 1130 Aquarius Avenue in Fruita. Just want to say I've done everything I possibly could do to meet everybody's concerns. And the deed restriction, I'm sure will restrict any further development. This thing seems to me to be set up perfect to split right in half. access from the north, access from the south. And right at those access points, there's water, electric. Done everything I can. The Grand Headwaters, they mentioned something about drilling, I think 6 different lots, which I think we all know wouldn't happen anyway. But there is water there that we can tap into. So I just wanted to say I've done just about everything I can to make everyone happy.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Nick Strays.
Nick Strezza, 1385 Southeast Third Street in Cedar Edge. I am the real estate agent that represented Mr. Simone in the purchase of the property. I have no further financial interest in it at this time. I did attend the Planning Commission meeting with him. At that meeting, there was, obviously, because it wasn't 100% vote, there were people opposed and people for. It was not an emotional meeting. People weren't all mad and yelling. It seemed like they were well thought out. And people came in kind of like they were today with real thoughts. I think the Planning Commission, in my opinion, even in the negative votes, they voted no against on things that really didn't have a right to vote against from a statutory standpoint. It's been approved by the Planning Commission. There is an insurable access from the north for the north lot and from the south for the south lot. And I haven't met with the county commissioner, but I'm sure there's not a problem on that. It would comply with even our new code if we had it. So I don't see a problem there. And I think from just a perspective of how we do government business, I don't see any way that this should not just be approved.
Thank you. Man, that brings up a good point. I do appreciate people's civility and thoughtfulness here. For us, it could be very welcome. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak, didn't get a chance to sign up? Lindsay, anybody online for us? Okay. We're going to go ahead and close the public hearing part of this. Commissioners, questions, comments for any of the applicants or planning?
I actually have a question for Mr. Enholm here. Looking at this map, we show, public right of way on 2025 road. And it's a bit, it's tough
He's
to.
looking at pictometry.
Yeah, it's tough to make it out specifically, but you have a neighbor to the east of you. And it has access, and then you're saying that's when it becomes private at that point?
My understanding from my plat and when I bought the property is the road becomes private right where the pavement ends. And that's where all the county maintenance is stopped, the snow plowing, taking care of the vegetation on the side of the roads, all of that is ended right at that pavement ending. And so from dirt west is my property with access to the one property that's east of me, goes to the south. You want me to come up there? Yeah, here, you can just point out exactly where the, see, so actually my property ends up here. I don't know if you make that a little bit.
So yours is back here.
Yeah, my property line is almost right before this driveway there. So this right here is.
So this neighbor accesses through your property?
Correct. And so does this neighbor has access to there. And again, that's why I don't have any issue with.
And these are prescriptive easements, or is this a general easement? As in to these, so the easement is given just to these two property owners, or is it specific
That's my
to the
understanding.
road?
No, just to those two property owners, and then the easement that's this property has as well.
Because that's something that's very unclear here, that is kind of a critical concern, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Any other questions for me, sir?
No, not right now, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
He's saying he's saying his property ends right here at this property line here.
Okay.
Okay, and that this property and this property have easement through his property to get onto there, and his is here. So
Private easements.
yeah, private easements, and that shows that this lot,
Commissioners, this is the guy that developed Pine Ridge, and he's the one that obtained that easement, and I think he can answer your questions on it.
okay, that's Chairman.
Please step forward and introduce yourself and make it brief.
My name is David Koos, Koos. The original property was owned by Leila Kmeyer. And my wife and I bought that 31.9 acres, 30.9 acres. And I was part of the partnership for the Pine Ridge North subdivision. So when before Leila closed on the property that she purchased, she had to do a boundary reconciliation with James Kidd, who owned the property that Lance owns now. And they resolved that access to that acre. She split the 76 acres and we bought the lower portion and our partners bought the upper. When she purchased that, her access easement extended from the end of 2525 road, 60 feet wide, to approximately the middle of her southern property. So that easement, access and utility easement was established before we ever bought the property, that 31 acres, 30.9 acres.
So public easement or private?
So
Is it an access easement for that property? And
so let me, I think you can sit down. I think we're facing a bit of a challenge here because access and easements are part of the land use process through the subdivision process, not the rezoning process. Okay, so we're asked here to rezone. Obviously, we want to try to keep everything in mind here in this rezone process. I'm find myself a little bit challenged here because
Thank you, Mr. Cruz.
yeah. Because, and just, if we do grant the rezone here, this is far from guaranteeing a subdivision also. You know, if this rezone's granted, there's still probably gonna be some needs that need to be met here, especially on this southern end of this property, to make sure that that easement is actually there for access. You know, this is what we have on the computer here is not always 100% accurate. I mean, we deal with that all the time. Most of the time it's close, but it's not always there.
But as a matter of addressing the rezone, the applicant takes the risk of access.
That's right. It would be up to the applicant to get his own access. So that, I mean, just because we grant the rezone does not guarantee access or does not, I mean, he still can't create an orphan lot through the subdivision process without access. And then obviously because of our subdivision regulations, the upper lot currently has access, but to allow any more accesses onto Pine Ridge would, by our code, would require it to be tied in with some other access for egress purposes.
Okay. So Mike, addressing the rezone issue, questions, comments?
Deed restrictions are just deed restrictions.
Once again, a deed restriction isn't part of this discussion, you know,
They were on just one part of it though.
yeah.
Was it, okay.
You know, that's our challenge here. My concern is just, you know, prevent us from creating an orphan lot. And that, once again, that falls in the subdivision process, not so much the rezoning process.
It is on the plat.
Hmm.
It is on the plat. 60.
All the way across there, and that is public right away then.
It says common access easement 60 foot.
And it's
It
not
has a
noted.
reception number for the easement, for the 60 foot as well.
Okay. So according to the plat, Mr. Inholm, that does grant access to that northern lot.
Correct. I'm not disputing that.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely, I understand he's got access to it in that 60-foot wide.
Okay.
300 feet section. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that we keep talking about access from 25 road, but that's really through my property, and if the rezoning requires a southern access for all of Pine Ridge, that section of my property is gonna have to, I'm not an engineer, but I would assume would have to be rebuilt because it goes down to 15 feet. It's got a culvert that probably wouldn't support that traffic.
So
that's.
once again, that's a subdivision question, not a rezoning question. But I was misunderstanding you. I was understanding that there was no access off of that. So that is, okay.
No, there is access. I don't
Okay.
dispute that.
Okay, all right. That was a misunderstanding I had. So, okay. So,
Don, anything else on that?
no, that pretty well answers that concern I had there. So.
And we're here to just on the.
Just the rezone. Yeah.
Any other questions, commissioners? What would be the pleasure of the board today?
We have a resolution number for this.
16.
Okay, so I once again, just based upon the fact that this is a rezone, this is not subdivision. This does not guarantee the right to subdivision. Once again, as stated several times, the developer still has work to do to make this happen. But I will move that the board adopt resolution number 2023-R-16 approving PLN 23-36 Simone to amend the Delta County Land Use Code rezoning an existing 30.91 acre parcel located at the south end of Pine Ridge Road from agricultural A20 to agricultural A5.
I second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So done.
Thank you all for coming. I do understand your concerns. But once again, this is not a guarantee of 6 lots going in there. This is just the ability to make it smaller than 30. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Planning, anything else for the commissioners today? Thank you for your presentation. You did good this time. We will be adjourned.
Thank you.
Did you have a resolution?